The aroma of roast turkey and cinnamon wafted through my family's sprawling Victorian mansion, mixing with the scent of expensive perfume and pretension. Another Wellington family Christmas was in full swing, complete with all the traditional holiday touches, designer decorations, French champagne, and of course the customary reminders of my supposed failure. "Julia, darling," Aunt Marie's voice dripped with false sweetness as she caught me setting my coat down in the formal dining room. "The kitchen is that way." She gestured toward the back of the house. "We wouldn't want to make anyone uncomfortable." I glanced around the opulent dining room, taking in the crystal champagne flutes and fine china that had been carefully arranged around the mahogany table. Place cards in elegant calligraphy marked each seat. My cousin William, the newly appointed CFO of Wellington Industries. His wife Margaret from the right kind of family, Aunt Marie and Uncle Charles, the current CEO, my parents both board members. Everyone who was anyone in the family business. My name was conspicuously absent. "Of course, Aunt Marie," I replied quietly, smoothing down my simple black dress, one that cost more than her monthly salary, though she'd never know that. "We wouldn't want to make anyone uncomfortable." She smiled, pleased with my apparent submission. "The staff always has such a lovely time in the kitchen. Much more suitable for someone in your position." My position. If only she knew that tomorrow morning, I would be sitting at the head of the boardroom table at Wellington Industries, announcing my acquisition of the company they'd all run into the ground. "What is Julia doing these days?" I heard my cousin William ask my mother as I gathered my coat. "Still working at that little startup?" My mother's sigh carried across the room. "Something like that. You know how she is, always chasing these strange business ideas instead of joining the family company like you did." I suppressed a smile, thinking about the strange business idea that had made me a billionaire before 30. Summit Enterprises, my technology and investment firm, had been quietly buying up shares of Wellington Industries for the past year, watching as the family's mismanagement drove the stock price lower and lower. "Remember when she turned down the junior executive position?" William chuckled, swirling his champagne. "Said she wanted to build something of her own instead of riding our coattails?" "A decision we've all had to live with," my father chimed in, his disappointment evident. "Though some of us more than others." I had indeed turned down their offer, a position that would have meant doing William's work while he took the credit. Instead, I'd used my business degree and programming skills to develop an AI-driven investment algorithm that had revolutionized the industry. Not that they knew that. To them, I was still the family disappointment who'd chosen the wrong path. "Julia," my younger sister Ashley called out, her voice carrying that familiar note of condescension. "Are you seriously wearing the same dress from last year?" I glanced down at my simple Carolina Herrera dress, one of dozens in my closet, all chosen to look unmemorable to my label-obsessed family. "You know me, Ashley. Just trying to make ends meet." She shook her head, diamond earrings catching the light. "Well, at least you're trying. Though if you just listened to Dad and joined the company." "Yes," Aunt Marie interjected, "William could have mentored you, shown you how real business is done." I thought about the report sitting in my briefcase, the one detailing how William's mismanagement had cost Wellington Industries nearly $40 million in the last quarter alone. Some mentor. Speaking of business, Uncle Charles boomed from his position by the fireplace. "We have exciting news. Wellington Industries is in talks with a major investor. Could change everything for the company." I took a slow sip of champagne, knowing exactly which investor he meant. Summit Enterprises had been negotiating the deal through layers of shell companies, carefully hiding my involvement. "Really?" I asked innocently. "That sounds interesting." "Nothing you'd understand, dear," Aunt Marie waved her hand dismissively. "Very complex business matters. Now why don't you head to the kitchen? Maria the cook could probably use some help with the dishes." William snickered. "Yes, Julia. Go find your level." I gathered my plate and walked toward the kitchen, their laughter following me. If they only knew that tomorrow, I would be announcing Summit Enterprises' controlling stake in their precious family company. That their jobs, all of them, would depend on my decisions. The kitchen staff greeted me warmly. They'd known me since childhood, back when I used to hide from family gatherings among the pots and pans. Maria, our cook of 20 years, squeezed my hand as I settled at the small staff table. "They don't know, do they, Miss Julia?" she asked quietly in Spanish. the language she taught me during those childhood hideouts. About tomorrow? I smiled, thinking about the board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. The one where Summit Enterprises would reveal its majority ownership. The one where they'd all learn that the family failure they'd banished to the kitchen was about to become their boss. "No, Maria," I replied, cutting into my turkey. "They don't know anything. Your aunt would die if she knew you own their company now," Maria chuckled. "Not yet," I corrected her. "The papers won't be signed until tomorrow morning." I checked my watch. Just 16 more hours of being the family disappointment. Through the kitchen door, I could hear them laughing in the dining room, probably sharing another joke at my expense. William's voice carried above the others. "At least Julia's found her place, where she can't embarrass the family name." If they only knew that tomorrow the Wellington Industries letterhead would carry my signature. That their precious family legacy would belong to the daughter they'd exiled to the kitchen. I finished my dinner in peaceful silence, listening to their self-congratulatory toasts and boasts about the company's future. Let them enjoy their last meal as the masters of Wellington Industries. Tomorrow would change everything. The next morning, I arrived at Wellington Industries headquarters an hour early. The security guard did a double take as I walked through the lobby. Usually, I wasn't allowed past the front desk without an escort, to ensure I didn't embarrass the family. "Miss Wellington?" he stammered. "I didn't know you had clearance." I handed him my new access card, watching his eyes widen as he read the clearance level. "I believe you'll find everything in order." My heels clicked against the marble floor as I made my way to the executive elevator, the one William had once told me I'd never be worthy of using. Today, I wore a tailored Chanel suit, my simple dress from last night replaced by obvious symbols of power. No more hiding. The top floor was still quiet when I stepped out. Sarah, my private assistant who'd been secretly working inside Wellington Industries for months, met me at the elevator. "Everything's ready," she reported, falling into step beside me. "The board members are scheduled to arrive in 45 minutes. Your family thinks they're here for the investment presentation." I nodded, walking into the CEO's office, soon to be my office. "Has anyone noticed the new letterhead yet?" Sarah smiled. "It was delivered this morning. Your uncle's secretary is having a meltdown trying to figure out why it has your name on it." I settled behind the massive desk, enjoying the view of the city skyline. My city now in many ways. Summit Enterprises owned half the buildings visible from this window. Right on schedule, I heard familiar voices in the hallway. William arrived first, then Aunt Marie and Uncle Charles. My parents weren't far behind. None of them noticed me sitting in the CEO's chair as they took their usual seats around the boardroom table, chattering about the upcoming presentation. "This investor better be worth all the secrecy," William complained, straightening his tie. I had to cancel my golf game. Aunt Marie patted his arm. "Now, dear, you know how these tech companies are. So dramatic about everything. At least we didn't have to invite Julia to this one." Speaking of Julia, my mother sighed. She was quite sullen about eating in the kitchen last night. "Well, what does she expect?" William scoffed. "She's hardly Wellington Industries material." I cleared my throat softly. Every head snapped toward the CEO's office, faces registering shock as they saw me sitting in Uncle Charles's chair. "Julia!" Uncle Charles thundered, his face reddening. "What is the meaning of this? This meeting is for executives only." I stood slowly, straightening papers on the desk. "Oh, I know. That's why I'm here." "Security." William reached for the phone. "I wouldn't do that," I said calmly. "It might embarrass you when they have to explain that I now have the highest security clearance in the building." Aunt Marie's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I picked up one of the new letterheads, holding it up so they could all see the name printed at the top. Julia Wellington, Chief Executive Officer. The silence was deafening. "This is ridiculous," William finally sputtered. "Some kind of joke." "Summit Enterprises," I continued as if he hadn't spoken, "has acquired a controlling interest in Wellington Industries. As CEO of Summit, I'll be taking over operations effective immediately." "Summit." My father's face went pale. "You work for Summit?" "No, Dad. I own Summit. That little startup you've all been mocking? It's now worth more than Wellington Industries ever was." Aunt Marie gripped the table for support. "This is impossible." "You're lying." I pressed the intercom. Sarah, please bring in the paperwork. My assistant entered with a thick stack of documents, distributing them to each stunned board member. You'll find everything is in order, I said. Summit Enterprises now owns 51% of Wellington Industries shares. And since the board voted last month to give the majority shareholder full executive power, we didn't know it was you. William slammed his fist on the table. This is manipulation. No, cousin. This is business. Something you claimed I'd never understand. I turned to my uncle. Speaking of business, shall we discuss the $40 million your son lost in failed acquisitions last quarter? Uncle Charles's face went from red to purple. Those deals were sound. They were reckless, I corrected. Just like the nepotism that put an unqualified heir in charge of finances. Just like the outdated policies that have driven this company's stock price into the ground. I smiled. Just like banishing a Harvard MBA to eat in the kitchen because she didn't fit your idea of success. You can't do this, my mother whispered. We're family. Family. I laughed. Was I family when you let Aunt Marie humiliate me at every gathering? When you chose William's incompetence over my qualifications? When you told me I'd never be anything without the family name? I walked around the table slowly, enjoying the way they squirmed in their seats. Well, guess what? I built something bigger than Wellington Industries could ever be. And I did it while you were all laughing at my little startup. What are you going to do? William asked, his arrogance finally cracking. First, I'm reviewing all executive positions, starting with yours, cousin. $40 million is a lot of money to lose. He slumped in his chair, defeated. Julia, my father tried. Be reasonable. You can't just walk in and take over. Surely I can. And I have. I pressed the intercom again. Sarah, please show in the new management team. The doors opened and a group of sharp-suited executives entered, all handpicked by me, all experts in their fields. None of them related to the Wellington family. You're firing us? Aunt Marie's voice rose to a shriek. All of us. Oh no, Aunt Marie. I'm offering you exactly what you offered me. I smiled sweetly. The kitchen staff is always looking for help. I hear the dishes need washing. The color drained from her face as her own words came back to haunt her. You can't be serious, William protested weakly. Completely serious. Though I suppose you could always try finding work elsewhere. I paused. Of course, Summit Enterprises owns most of the major companies in this sector. And I hear the CEO can be quite particular about who she hires. One by one, they gathered their belongings and shuffled out of the boardroom. My mother paused at the door, tears in her eyes. Julia, please. The kitchen entrance is around back, Mom. I'm sure Maria will show you where to put your coat. When they were gone, I settled into my new chair, looking out over my expanded empire. Sarah appeared with a fresh cup of coffee. Shall I have maintenance change the locks? She asked with a knowing smile. No need. I picked up one of the new letterheads, running my finger over my name. I don't think they'll be coming back. That evening, I had dinner in the executive dining room, enjoying the silence and the victory. My phone buzzed with messages from family members, alternating between anger and desperate pleas. I left them all unread. Sometimes success doesn't need to be announced with grand declarations. Sometimes it's better to let it speak for itself, preferably from the CEO's chair they said you'd never occupy.